Well, it's a short story. I carry a sword. I'm from the swamps of Black Marsh. Do you need me to continue, or can you piece it together from here? Don't be so hard on yourself. I used to think Skyrim was nothing but snow and werewolves. But there's trolls, too. To be honest, there's more to the name than just living in a swamp and sticking things with a pointy end. I was hatched in a small tribal village, lost in the swamps between Thorn and Hellstrom. In other words, in the middle of nowhere. As the hatchling of a small and pitiful clan, I couldn't afford to travel to the city and train under the guidance of the tribal guard. Right you are. But few boats stopped by my village. There were visitors. In fact, every few years, a recruiter from the city would come to the village and conscript those in the clan who showed promise. Only a handful of hatchlings were chosen. All of them were males. Males I bested in combat 100 times over. I figured the only way I'd be a soldier was to train on my own. So, one night, I went out into the deepest swamps with nothing but a hist branch. I committed myself to killing a feather serpent. On the second night, I thought I'd vanquish 3. By the first hour, my only goal was to survive. Somehow, I managed. I labored through the bog and hid inside a hollowed-out tree. I waited and watched for predators. And as I watched, I learned.
Что ты увидел?
I saw how the serpent camouflaged itself in the foliage. How the Leviathan waded effortlessly through the swamp, simply by refusing all effort. I saw how on bright days, the lizard used the Hackwing's own shadow to scuttle around unseen, and how on dark days, all creatures clung to the mist. By the time I was grown, I could slay 5 feathered serpents with a single slash and do it with my eyes closed. True enough, the name came when I joined a company of fighters, many of whom were celebrated warriors from all over Tamriel. There were members who served as honor guards for tribal chieftains, and those who trained under guild masters and various regiments of the Empire. There were even retired assassins from the renowned Shadow Scales of legend, but none knew of who I was, or why I was recruited to join the company. The truth was, I was never supposed to be there. I had found the invitation on a courier while traveling west toward Gideon. Undaunted, I told them the story of how I trained to become a knight. I used that exact word. In truth, I'd only heard the word knight in passing, but when travelers from strange lands used the term, their words spoke with a tone heavy with reverence. That's how I wanted them to speak about me. Naturally, the company laughed uproariously at my expense. They dubbed me the Swamp Knight, and I've been that ever since. Agreed. And while I had some anxiety joining such an esteemed company, I quickly discovered that I indeed belonged. We used to ask Moontail which clan he was from, and every day it was a different clan. Twice he swore that we were hatched from the same mother. How dare you forget your own sibling, he'd say. Dalum A never told us who the conjurer was, but according to him, Moontail had already told us countless times. There were truths in every lie, parts of different stories that told the same tale, and if you pieced it all together, you would know. Yes, there was Arnwulf, a former member of the Fighters Guild in Cyrodiil, a big Nord man with an even bigger laugh. In contrast, Ula Wei never said a word. He was a retired shadow scale, and the only noise he made was when he sharpened his daggers. Moontail was a conjurer who conjured monsters as quickly as he conjured lies. And Elia, a Breton healer whose lust for men had no cure. Then there was the Bosmer Indrel. Lazy girl, that one. When we made camp, she slept in the trees, but always with one eye open. There was a red guard named Bodan, a man whose gift of strings and tongue once earned him a place beside an Argonian tribal chief. And lastly, our leader, Dalum A, a legendary swordsman who fought in the Great War. I used to tell Arnwulf he was ugly enough to be one. Ha 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 ha! He never laughed so hard.
Следуй за мной. Мне нужна твоя помощь.
Lead, brave one, and I will follow. These old Nord tombs smell like sweat and flies.
Заботился о нас, ибо видел он в нас, в каждом из нас, будущее Скайрима, будущее Тамриэля. И вот...
So you're a companion.
А у тебя все получится, но пока нужно еще тренироваться.
Хватит тренировок, я хочу подраться.
Пока никаких драк, пока Скиор не даст добро. Тренируйся.
Легко
How are
тебе
you holding up,
говорить.
traveler?
Ты-то дерешься?
Don't be afraid to rest early tonight. You've earned it. Don't worry. I'll drink enough for the both of us.
I wonder what happens when a customer can't afford to pay for a meal or a drink.
Chasing this scroll makes me feel like a knight again. You have ancient evils, legendary weapons, and heroes to claim them. It's an exciting time to be alive, isn't it? Although I never expected the weapon to be a shout. I guess it's a Nord thing. Maybe, if you're a dragon. Ha 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 ha! Now, if this shout were called Lizard Rend, then I might have reason to worry. But all right, traveler. I'll do my best. If the Greybeards say it, it's one thing. But I trust you to know the difference between peace and indifference. Hard to say. Aside from the fact that Dalomay recruited mages, I'd say the biggest difference is the name. The companions already have a long history. We were trying to make one. But we were both founded on honor and glory. The fact that a few people around here still believe in it is a testament to their company. I can't even imagine. Our company had to live up to an ideal, but the only people we let down was ourselves. But Iskramor is a real person, and he's up there in Sovngarde, shaking his finger at Torvar every time he gets drunk. Or maybe he's nodding his head in approval. I can't tell with these Nords if drinking yourself stupid is a sin. It was. I could tell you 1,000 stories of the glory days, but most of them only remind me of how it ended, and what we lost. But the one I'll always remember fondly is the day we were delivering sacks of potions to a village full of Dunmer refugees. Many of my fellow Argonians didn't like what we were doing. Even Moontail scowled at the notion. But Dalomay stood his ground. There were sick children who needed these potions. It was the honorable thing. I thank you, traveler. Your words are kind. Still, to some we were traitors, and it wasn't long before they made their feelings known. They ambushed our camp one night when the mist was thick. Skilled warriors with poison-tipped spears. The others fought them off as best they could. Dalomay ordered me to stay with the cargo. One by one, I watched my friends emerge from the white, blood dripping from their wounds. Bodan arrived carrying Ulaway on his shoulder. He said more were on the way. He turned to Elia, but she shook her head. She was all out of magicka. Indril was the first to suggest we drank the potions from the shipment. Dalomay said he would kill anyone who tried. I didn't even think. My company looked to me. They trusted me, and I knew then. It didn't matter how many of them were waiting for me in that mist. It was me against them, and I couldn't lose. The others wished me luck. Bodan stood up to speak, but it was Moontail of all people who said the words I'll never forget. Remember, child, he said, it matters not the size of their blades, or the size of their numbers, only the size of your heart. And on that day, it was big enough. May the Hist guide us. And in! And here I was beginning to think you never slept.
Ужасный и могущественный Талос, мы, твои никчемные слуги, славим тебя. Только твоей милостью и щедростью достигнем мы просветления. Мы жалкие черви, ползающие в грязи нашего разврата. А ты преодолел рок смертных.
Я тебя повсюду ищу. Тебе просили кое-что передать, лично в руки. Посмотрим. Ну, вроде все. Ладно, мне пора.
Покажу теперь вам силу Талоса Кран... Бури, рожденного севером, даровавшим мне дыхание нескончаемой земли.
Friend or foe, I don't think I'll be able to avoid this stranger for long. Not if he knows where I live.
So, the Swamp Knight lives. Thank RK.
Bodan, what are you doing here?
Looking for you and Elia. I searched east and west, high and low. The sands of time flowed for many months, but I managed to find you both.
I haven't seen Elia since we parted in Bravo. But how is she?
I don't know. She was found dead in her room at the Oak Enclosure in Karol. It's not the sort of establishment where an assassin can slip in unnoticed.
With Elia, he wouldn't have to. Not if he was handsome enough.
True, but there's a reason I sought her. The same reason I'm here with you now. Elia isn't the only one. It started with Ula Wei. At the time, I was disheartened, yet I was far from surprised. The Shadow Scale builds a ledger of enemies that runs longer than a Leviathan's tail. However, while mourning one friend, there came news of two more. Arnwolf and Moontail had perished as well.
By the hist. What about the others? Ptolemy? Indril?
They're fine, as far as I know. The first thing I did was seek Dalume's counsel. He was surprised to see me, but gracious, as always. When I told him of what happened, he asked that I warn you and Elia, whereas he would stay and search for Indril. Although, to be honest, the Bosmer did not concern me as much as you two. You know as well as I do that no one will ever find her, so long as she doesn't want to be found.
Arnwolf. Moontail. Elia. Why?
A question without an answer, or perhaps far too many. When we were a company, there were no shortage of people who wanted us dead. Together, we could always fend them off. Apart, we are at their mercy.
Then we band together one last time. We take the fight to anyone and everyone who dares kill one of our own.
My friend, I see time hasn't frayed your passion. The problem is our enemy has not a face.
Forgive me, Bodan. All those years, all those lessons. And sometimes I wonder if I've learned anything at all.
You were always his favorite, and in this case you aren't in the wrong. Aggression may be what is needed. However, our best weapon at this point is our wits, not our blades. I've done some research on our past jobs, and it appears there is one unscrupulous lord we managed to thwart far more often than the others. A baron, in fact, by the name of Gabania. As it so happens, it seems one of his agents is in Falkreath, attempting to secure a fur deal with the local hunters. I have other leads as well, which I myself will attend to. If you can vet this one, perhaps we can narrow down our suspects.
All right, I'll find out what I can.
Be safe, old friend.
I know this isn't your fight, Traveler, but whoever killed the others must be one damn good fighter. And I'd feel better if you were by my side. Fair enough. Then let's find this murdering lord and test both our mettle. Truth be told, it was always going to be in death. Maybe that's what the mourner's clothes were for. So when I saw them next, at least I'd be properly attired. I never thought I would be mourning them in this way. It's not. And I don't mean from assassins, but from himself. Bodan never really got over his wife's death. I don't know if I told you this, but every day he was with us was a fight to keep him alive. Dalum A used vengeance to motivate him. Looking into his eyes, I wonder if that's all but settled. But honor is a funny thing. Sometimes it trumps even love. We may not be a company, but he'd never abandon us now. If he thinks this is the best way to go about it, then I trust him. Then maybe that's the end of it. But I don't know. Powerful men have a way of lingering, even after death. I'm right behind you. A Nordic ruin. It promises treasure, but I wouldn't hold my breath. That will get you killed.
Thank you for bringing her here. If there's one thing Anumla values, it's friends. I'm glad she's found a resourceful one. It's the least I could do considering everything that happened. It's a shame I was too late to save Elia. Although, it remains to be seen if any of us will survive this assassin's blade. What I know has more to do with the victims than the killer. Ulaway was a master assassin. Arnwolf was a bear in single combat. Elia and Moontail were both accomplished mages. To kill them all, one would have to adapt to their weaknesses or be of such skill that such measures were unnecessary. This assassin, he has studied us. No doubt he knows what we are all capable of and what we are not. That is why, for my dear Swamp Knight, your presence may be key to her survival. Yes, black robes. Mourners we never would have guessed. I know what it's like to lose someone you love. If this assassin is one of their kin, then I understand their motives better than anyone. It's possible. While the child himself is too young to have done such acts, It could be someone working on his behalf. A friend, a loved one, even the Dark Brotherhood. What happened was certainly motive enough. I'm sure she has. She likes to romanticize the old days, a disease which I myself inflicted her with. As the youngest of our group, we all try to influence her in our own way. I try to teach her the arts and poetry, but while at times she speaks as eloquently as a king's blade, I could never truly cure her of the swamp. We all did. Greener than pond scum, I believe is what Moontail called her. Dalume, however, said he chose her for a reason. He never said what that reason was. If I were to guess, I would say she was a symbol of purity. She bore none of the scars that the rest of us had. In time, through her deeds, she would come to represent what the Honorable Eight aspired to be. She was, in the end, a clean slate. I was always a bit detached, to be honest. I joined for different reasons than the others. That isn't to say I didn't enjoy the glory. Under different circumstances, I may have been consumed by it. Arnwolf tried to get her to drink with him, but conversely she developed a distaste for mead. Moontail enjoyed teasing her, although it was always in jest. Elia tried to teach her about men, and Dalume wanted to groom her to be a master swordsman like him. Indrel, well, she ignored her, but Indrel ignored everyone. I imagine it wasn't much of a secret why I joined the company. Dalume promised me vengeance, and he was never one to break a promise. When I was younger, I cared only for status. I wanted fame and glory, which is precisely why I moved to Black Marsh. Even in Skyrim, there are more bars than flakes of snow. But in the marsh, I could ply my trade without peer. And of peers, I had none. Soon, tribes from Thorn to Solris knew of the Red Guard with the golden lute and the silver tongue. Life couldn't have been grander. I had achieved the success I craved, and at home, my wife was pregnant with our first child. Yes, they say it's always darkest before the dawn, but never does one imagine the reverse. My love was torn from me like darkness swallowing the midday sun. They say it was an illness that claimed her and my child. I know it was poison. When I met her, the first thing I noticed was her eyes. A Redguard with green eyes was a curious thing. And they were brighter than any gem, and when they smiled, all the dollar of the swamp was washed away by their light. They say when a person is poisoned, the blacks of their eyes widen, like a curtain drawn to block out the sun. That's how I knew. For those last few days she was still alive. But the light from those brilliant green eyes, gone. Dalume was the only one who believed me. He was the only one who cared about the honor of a broken bard. He knew me to be a man of integrity, and he knew the tribal chieftain was not. In all my years, I have never met a more honorable person, nor one who could better identify that virtue in others. I did, in a matter of speaking, although I don't know when. For those who would murder a wife and an unborn child, corruption is part of their very soul. As part of the Honorable Eight, Dalume assured me we would catch them for the next crime, if only to convict them of the previous one. There were about a dozen mortals I suspected of the deed, and together We killed them all. The last one, though, something about his scales, they were bright green, as if he had stolen my beloved's light. If you were to ask me which one was the culprit, I would stake my life on it being him. Indeed, 4 princes set out to play a game. They would choose a mortal, and each tempt him with one wish. Nocturnal offered riches. Hermias Mora offered wisdom. Sanguine offered pleasure, and Molag Bal offered power. Yet the man was simple. He had no desire for the trivialness of gold, the pain of wisdom, the fleeting nature of pleasure, or the pressure of power. So he turned not to a Daedric prince, but to Sithis, and was granted the one wish he desired above all others: death. It's a convenient tale. Not all things in life are as temporary or trivial as riches and pleasure. Some things are eternal. The friendship she shares with you and I with her, those are worth living for. So I beg my love to wait just a little longer. My work is not done.